The corridor reeked of metal and nerves. Fluorescent lights hummed above, flickering like they, too, were anxious. Sophia pressed her palms flat on the cold table, while a young guard appended her canvas bag. Lip balm. A folded notebook. A creased photograph that slid across the steel surface. The soldiers chuckled, whispering in low, cutting tones. Then silence. Because the last zipper gave way, and out slipped a tiny leather case. It clicked open. The emblem inside caught the harsh light. A falcon, claws wrapped around a bolt of lightning. And the air changed. Not the nervous chatter. Not the footsteps. Not even the drone of the ventilation system. Everything stopped. The sergeant's jaw tightened. His mirrored glasses lowered just enough to reveal eyes gone narrow, almost afraid. He knew what he was looking at. Everyone in that room felt it too, even if they didn't know why. Whispers spread like sparks. That's not supposed to exist. Just a rumor. Sophia didn't flinch. Her face was stone. But inside, her pulse was a drumbeat of memory. She had built a life around being invisible. At 43, Sophia worked in the forgotten logistics annex of Falcon Ridge Air Logistics Center, a place that smelled of printer ink, stale coffee, and recycled air. To her colleagues, she was just another mid-level clerk pushing requisition forms through the machine. To herself, she was no one. And that was the point. She had chosen anonymity, like a surgeon chooses precision. No sudden movements. No loose ends. Just silence. Every scar she carried had been buried under routine. The faint white streak in her hair, born from a firefight under a Syrian thunderstorm, was dismissed as stress by younger staff. The cedar token in her wallet, once the price of survival at a hostage gate in Chad, was mistaken for a charm. And the emblem, hidden deep in her bag, had become just a ghost she refused to throw away. Because once upon a time, Sophia hadn't been a clerk. She had been Valkyrie, an operator in a unit so secret that the Pentagon itself pretended it had never existed. Red Falcon. But that morning, two things cracked her disguise. First, an encrypted message, cold and sterile, requesting her analysis for an operation east of longitude 50. A request too sharp, too heavy to ignore. Second, a simple malfunction. The badge reader at her building broke. Every low-level worker was funneled through West Checkpoint, the most militarized gate on the base. Sophia arrived with the sun climbing behind radar domes, its glare bouncing off armored glass. The line was long. Soldiers barked orders, their boots echoing sharp against asphalt. She kept her gaze low, rehearsing her cover in her head. Civilian equivalent. Logistics grade 12. No anomalies. When it was her turn, she placed her canvas bag on the conveyor with calm hands. The scanner beeped once, then hesitated. A young private frowned. "Ma'am, do you have any metallic pins or electronics not declared?" Sophia's voice was flat, measured. No prohibited electronics. Just tools and personal items. Inspect if necessary. He nodded nervous and began pulling things out. One by one. Her mug. Her notebook. The cedar token. Her oatmeal packet. A sergeant wandered closer, smelling amusement. A half-circle of guards gathered, leaning on rails, smirking. Then, the leather case. It fell open with a sound louder than it should have been. The black falcon emblem glinted under fluorescent light. The sergeant froze. His mirrored glasses came down, eyes locking onto her. For a moment, the room breathed as one, then held its breath. "Bag it," he whispered, voice cutting like a gunshot. "Nobody moves." Two MPs appeared instantly, hands twitching near holsters. Sophia raised her palms slowly, outward. A gesture of calm. A gesture that, if she chose, could shift into something lethal. Because deep in her ID badge was a clearance code that could erase this whole tableau in an instant. But she didn't. She waited. The emblem had spoken louder than she ever could. And its voice was calling ghosts back from the dark. Outside, tires screeched. An unmarked SUV rolled to a stop. Two men in midnight uniforms strode in, nameless, their faces hard with authority. One looked at the sergeant. "Explain." But his eyes had already shifted to the emblem. And then to her. "Lieutenant Commander Sophia Vale," he said quietly. "Why is a Red Falcon operator moving through this gate without escort?" The phrase Red Falcon detonated across the checkpoint. Every head snapped toward her. Every whisper stopped. Sophia finally spoke, her voice calm as stone. "Because this operator signed remission. I'm a clerk. Non-combatant. Paragraph 12C authorizes my transit." The officer narrowed his eyes. Paragraph 12C also prohibits carrying identifiers. Care to explain why that pin is in your possession? Sophia inhaled through her nose. A slow breath. "Because I was told to keep it. As a reminder." She didn't say of what. She didn't need to. The room trembled with silence. The colonel's stare lingered. Then he nodded once. "Return her property. Clear this gate." The sergeant's face turned chalk white. He obeyed, hands shaking. The private swept her items back into the bag. When the emblem slid across the tray, he hesitated, terrified of touching it. Sophia took it gently, zipped it away, slung the strap across her shoulder. No apology was offered. No respect was spoken aloud, but as she walked through the metal detector, whispers followed her, clinging like shadows. By the time she reached her office, she had forced the memory into a mental lockbox. But the aftershocks lingered, the encrypted request, the checkpoint incident, the emblem. They weren't random. They were cracks in the mask she had worn for years. And when the sealed envelope arrived at 3 p.m., her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside a single sheet, gray cardstock, black ink, Red Falcon Recall Protocol. Effective immediately. Remission suspended. Report to Hangar 6 at 1900 hours. Signature redacted. Her breath caught. Article 7 recall. The kind of order whispered about, but never seen. It meant only one thing. The world had just shifted. And the ghosts were calling her back. What would you do if the life you buried, the scars you hid, and the past you swore never to return to came crashing back in a single envelope? The sun was bleeding out across the prairie sky when Sophia closed her office door for the last time. Desk clear. Blinds half-drawn. Trash emptied. Every detail aligned like she was preparing for an inspection. Old habits. Even in catastrophe, order had to be maintained. She walked the service alley behind Building 9, the hum of dumpsters thick with flies, the chain-link fence rattling against the hot wind. The base stretched before her. Hangars crouched like sleeping beasts against the horizon. Each step felt like a layer peeling away. The clerk. The routine. The mask of anonymity. Beneath it, the operator stirred. Her boots struck pavement with a rhythm she hadn't walked in years. Heel, breath, quadrant scan. Every muscle fell back into formation, as if she'd never left. The sky above turned bruised purple. Orange light scraped the steel ribs of radar domes. The tarmac shimmered with dying heat. And there it was. Hangar 6. A dark cathedral at the edge of the flight line, its massive doors yawning open just enough to reveal the silhouette of something impossible. A jet. Not just any jet. A black-winged bird she hadn't seen in 13 years. Officially, it had been decommissioned, scrapped, buried in silence. Yet now it glimmered under the fading sun like a god resurrected. Two figures stood waiting in its shadow. One tall, broad-shouldered, his stance unmistakable even from a distance. The other compact, sharp movements betraying a precision honed by years of survival. The taller one raised a hand, not in greeting, but in code. A signal only one name answered. Valkyrie, her old call sign. Sophia's throat tightened. Static roared in her ears. She stepped into the hangar, boots echoing across concrete that smelled of oil and dust. The shorter figure moved first, his gait uneven, rebuilt by pain, yet unbroken. Scars carved across his face like old maps. "Long time," Robert said, his gravel voice cutting the silence. Sophia stopped in her tracks. "Robert, I was told you were Kia." He smirked, but it didn't touch his eyes. Reports of my death were strategically useful. Her chest tightened. The last time she'd seen him, blood had pooled in the sand. his body limp under fire. She had mourned him, and now he stood here, alive, like a ghost pulled into flesh. The third figure hadn't moved. She lingered near a folding table, her posture calm, face unreadable. Sophia turned slowly, and the world narrowed. Emma. Her stare was the same, quiet, deliberate, weighted enough to silence a room. Years had hardened her, but the essence hadn't changed. Emma, Sophia whispered. Her voice cracked, though she tried to hide it. Emma didn't nod, didn't smile. She simply gestured to the glowing screen on the table. A satellite frame, desert terrain, whitewashed walls, a compound carved into nowhere. In the center courtyard, a kneeling prisoner, bound, shadowed by 2 guards. But that wasn't what froze Sophia's blood. Beside the prisoner sat a box. Matte black. No, bigger than a backpack. Yet unmistakable. Her voice trembled. That's not possible. That program was destroyed. Emma's eyes flicked to hers, sharp and calm. It wasn't destroyed. It evolved. And it's active. The implication cut through Sophia's chest like a blade. That box held more than circuits. It held memory. It held control. Who has it? She asked, voice low. Robert folded his arms. Not any state we can track. Not Five Eyes. Not even Moscow. Whoever moved it did it from inside. Inside what? Sophia pressed. He gave a bitter laugh. Inside us. Deep. Deeper than any clearance. Sophia's stomach churned. This wasn't foreign. This was betrayal. Emma tapped the screen twice. Another image flickered into view. A downed drone. Its remains scattered across rock. She zoomed in. A faint marking on one of the fins. Burnt. Almost erased. But still there. A falcon clutching lightning. Sophia's heart sank. One of theirs. Not stolen tech. Not foreign reverse engineering. This was Red Falcon, rebuilt, reprogrammed, resurrected. Robert leaned closer, voice like gravel breaking. They're not trying to revive the Falcon. They're trying to hijack it. Emma's gloved hand reached into a case. She lifted something small between 2 fingers. A carbon-weave dog tag. Sophia knew the texture instantly. And the code etched into it. Her stomach dropped. It was hers. Not her real identity, but one of her aliases. A decoy name, burned into mission logs that were supposed to be sealed forever. Sophia stared. Where did you get this? Emma's tone was surgical. Recovered near the compound. Left as a message. Robert's jaw clenched. They're baiting us. Sophia swallowed hard. And we're going anyway. The hangar seemed to close in around her. Floodlights bathed the recon jet in a sterile glow, its steel ribs casting long shadows across the concrete. Sophia's breath slowed. The rhythm of an operator returned. What's the window? She asked. Emma's answer was sharp. 17 hours. Infiltration at 0300. Extraction within 6. Sophia nodded. And the team? Emma's silence was heavy. You're going alone. Robert's jaw twitched. Too many will get spotted. One has a chance. Sophia felt the weight of inevitability settle across her shoulders. It wasn't courage. It wasn't defiance. It was acceptance. She had known from the moment she saw the emblem. The past wasn't asking anymore. It was commanding. Emma handed her a patch. The falcon. The bolt. But now ringed in crimson. No backup. No calm trace. No extraction unless successful. Not a warning. A fact. You've been reactivated, Emma said flatly. Sophia didn't answer. She simply took the patch, her thumb brushing its edge. The silence in the hangar was thick. A silence filled with ghosts. And in that silence, Sophia knew. She was already airborne. If the ghosts of your past came back not to haunt you, but to summon you, would you follow them into the dark? The jet whispered across the night sky like a thought no one wanted spoken aloud. At 37,000 feet, wrapped in black polymer skin, it drank the moonlight whole. Inside, Sophia sat alone, eyes closed, breath steady. The old rhythm returned, the one she had buried under paperwork and silence. Attention split into quadrants. Memory flowing like stacked files. Emotion stripped away, replaced with mathematics. Her pulse matched the hum of the engines. Every second pulled her further from the life she'd pretended to live, and deeper into the one that never really died. Below stretched the Afghan desert, a wasteland of stone and whispering wind, where villages collapsed into rumor and maps lied with empty ink. She had walked this ground before, on foot, under fire, carrying ghosts. Somewhere in that soil lay bodies that never made it home, and one child who wasn't supposed to live. That memory lingered, like the streak of white in her hair, a scar not on her body, but in her soul. At 0241 local, the jet banked hard southeast. The pilot said nothing. There were no words left to use. Sophia strapped into the harness, pulled the mask over her jaw. No countdown, just gravity. The hatch opened. The world yawned. And then she was gone. She fell like silence. Wind clawed at her suit. Sand rose up to meet her. The chute bloomed black against black. It dissolved into the night like smoke. Her boots kissed the earth with barely a sound. Crouched, rifle up, breath steady. 8 minutes to the compound. No noise. No witnesses. Only the dust swirling like restless spirits. The compound rose out of the desert like a lie. Mud brick walls. Civilian facade. But Sophia's eyes caught what others would miss. Too symmetrical. Too wide. Too military. She found an access point near a power box, wires humming faintly under her fingertips. Waited. Listened. The silence was surgical. Perfect. Engineered. She slipped inside. The courtyard opened before her. Her rifle tracked every shadow, every corner. And there it was. The box. Matte black. Breathing faintly with heat. A red light pulsing slow, deliberate. But the prisoner from the briefing was gone. The courtyard was empty except for the box. And a figure. Standing beside it. Face uncovered. Eyes locked on hers. Emma. For a moment, Sophia's heart stopped. She had just seen her in the hangar. Cold. Controlled. Commanding. Now here she was. In the middle of the enemy compound. Alone. Unarmed. And her eyes weren't hostile. They were sad. Sophia's weapon stayed raised. But her voice broke the silence. What is this? Emma didn't move. Her hand stayed visible. Her tone calm, almost gentle. I told you Red Falcon was reactivated. I didn't tell you who reactivated it. The words cut deeper than any bullet. Sophia's chest tightened. You're not with JSOC. Emma shook her head slowly. No one is. Not anymore. The box hissed, venting heat. Its red light blinked like a heartbeat. Sophia stepped closer, cautious, every muscle ready to strike. What's inside? Emma's gaze dropped to the box. Proof. Her voice sharpened. Not of their orders. Not of their war. Proof of what they did to us. Sophia's throat went dry. This wasn't extraction. This wasn't a mission. It was a stage. Emma's voice softened again. The emblem in your bag. You didn't pack it, Sophia. They did. It wasn't a keepsake. It was a beacon. A trigger. Sophia froze. That's impossible. You zipped up what they gave you, Emma cut in. Not what you thought you owned. The words sank like stones into Sophia's chest. Her entire life of silence, of erasure, had just been used against her. Above them, the night shivered. A low vibration in the air. Sophia's eyes flicked upward. Drone formations. Too many to count. She whispered. Those are ours. Emma's voice was a knife. Not anymore. The box pulsed again. Symbols crawled across its surface. Not the Falcon. Not the Bolt. Something new. Something older. Red Falcon Archive 0.1. And Sophia understood. It wasn't a weapon. It was a vault. A memory vault. Every order. Every mission. Every denial. Every erased operative. 15 years of ghosts. Now alive. Emma's eyes lifted, glinting in the red glow. The moment they scanned your bag, the clock started. The emblem wasn't decoration. It was ignition. And now the world will see who we really were. Sophia's rifle lowered by inches. Not out of trust, but awe. You're burning it all down, she whispered. Emma shook her head. No. We're letting them see the ashes. Above them, the first pulse rippled across the sky. Blue light stretched horizon to horizon. Transmission. The archive had gone live. And the world was about to learn the names of the dead. And the living. Including hers. If every secret you ever buried, every scar, every kill order, every lie you lived by, suddenly became public for the world to judge, would you fight to stop it, or let the truth burn? The desert compound shook, not from bombs or mortars, but from silence breaking. Above, the drones hovered like dark angels, their wings glinting under the thin moon. The box hissed once more, and then it began. A pulse. Blue light tearing across the horizon, fast as lightning, silent as breath. Every terminal, every encrypted feed, every locked archive tuned itself without consent. The Falcon emblem appeared first. Black, sharp, unmistakable. The same sigil Sophia had carried hidden in her bag for years. And then names. Dead names. Presumed dead names. Living names. Sophia's name. Inside NATO command centers, generals froze mid-sentence. In bunkers carved beneath mountains, operators stared as their erased histories flickered back into existence. In embassies, in aircraft carriers, in dark rooms where silence was law, ghosts came alive on screens that had no right to speak. Families who had been given empty caskets saw, for the first time, what really happened. A mother in Berlin dropped her glass as footage rolled of her son, missing for 12 years, shot in a nameless corridor. In Cairo, an old man saw the face of his daughter, the one they told him had died in training. She hadn't. She had been deployed and discarded. Sophia watched it all from the underground chamber of the compound. Her eyes locked on a screen. Emma adjusted, her breath shallow but steady. Her name scrolled. Valkyrie. Asset code September 13th, 42. And then, a clip. A grainy video of herself entering a building in Homs, Syria, 2011. 20 minutes before the wing collapsed in fire. The audio crackled. A voice she recognized, sharp and aged. A general's voice. Proceed with liquidation. Target Valkyrie to be erased. Her throat closed. They had tried to kill her, not metaphorically. Literally. She had been scheduled for erasure. And the order had come from her own command. The footage ended. For a moment, she felt nothing. Not rage. Not grief. Just clarity. Every sleepless night. Every scar hidden under silence. Every year wasted pretending to be a clerk. It had all been because the system that created her had also marked her for destruction. And yet, here she was, breathing, watching, alive. Emma's voice cut the quiet. It's reached the second node. Europe. Asia next. Her tone wasn't triumphant. It was clinical, like a surgeon reporting vitals. Robert paced like a caged wolf, his rebuilt legs stiff, his jaw tight. You understand what this means? Entire governments will collapse under this. Emma finally looked at him. Then let them. Collapse is honest. Sophia leaned back in the cold steel chair, her hands trembling, not from fear, but from weight. She whispered, almost to herself, "They'll see us as monsters." Emma's eyes softened, just barely. They already did. The only difference is now, they'll know why. The hum of the box deepened, vibrating through the floor like a heartbeat amplified. On screens across the world, more files cracked open. Mission logs. Unacknowledged strikes. Renditions denied under oath. And the names of the operators who carried them out, names buried, burned, erased, now screamed from black screens in glowing white text. In the Pentagon, an aging general sat frozen. On his screen, his own voice played back, authorizing Valkyrie's liquidation order. The room around him hushed, officers exchanging looks they didn't dare speak aloud. One whispered. They recorded everything. And somewhere across the ocean, a prime minister stared at the screen showing her signature authorizing a covert strike she had sworn never existed. Her lips trembled. Sophia watched as the world unraveled in real time. She thought of the guards at the checkpoint, smirking as they dumped her bag across the floor. She thought of the cedar token still in her wallet. She thought of the streak of white in her hair, carved by lightning under a Syrian storm. All of it, every scar, every humiliation, every erased truth, was now public. The silence was gone. Forever. Emma adjusted the console again, her fingers calm, her face unreadable. It's reached the final node. In 42 minutes, the archive will be mirrored globally. Nothing can stop it. Robert let out a long breath. And then, Emma's gaze lingered on Sophia. Then we disappear. But not as ghosts. As consequences. Sophia's chest tightened. For years, she had lived as if she were already dead. Now, for the first time, she felt alive. Not because of revenge. Not because of vindication. But because the truth was finally free. The cost didn't matter. It had already been paid. In blood, in silence, in shadows. Now, the world would carry it. Above the compound, the wind shifted. Not violent. Just different. As if the weight of the night itself had changed. If the truth cost everything, your safety, your country, even your identity, would you still choose to let it out? Or would you keep the silence to survive? The wind carried dust across the compound, a whispering veil that wrapped the walls and softened the night. Above, the drones were gone. The broadcast had done its work. Sophia sat in the dark, her back against cold concrete, the emblem warm in her palm. The Black Falcon, her ghost. Across from her, Emma monitored the stream, her face lit in pulses of blue as the archive poured itself into the world. Robert leaned in a corner, silent, scarred, watching everything unravel with the patience of a man who'd already died once. The hum of the black box slowed, like a heart reaching its final beats. Not a weapon, not a bomb, but something more dangerous. A confession machine. The feed reached its last node. Berlin, Tokyo, Buenos Aires, Cairo, Washington. Every secret, every mission, every erased operative, now unburied. In military bunkers, in war rooms, in presidential palaces, men and women who had built careers on silence felt the ground shift under their feet. Denials collapsed. Careers ended. Allies turned. And in one Pentagon terminal, the general who had once ordered Sophia's liquidation sat motionless. The clip of his own voice looped again, cold and inescapable. For the first time in decades, he had nothing left to command. Sophia felt no triumph, no vengeance, only a strange, calm clarity. The system that had created her had also tried to erase her. Now it couldn't. Her name was out there, not as a ghost, not as a whisper, but as truth. Emma finally spoke, her voice quiet. It's done. The archive is mirrored. Even if they shut it down, copies will live everywhere. Nothing can erase us now. Robert gave a dry chuckle, bitter but relieved. Erased twice. Resurrected once. Guess we're harder to kill than they thought. Sophia stood slowly, her knees aching, not from age, but from use. She slipped the emblem into her bag, not hiding it anymore, but carrying it openly. For the first time in years, it wasn't a burden. It was closure. 3 weeks later, Falcon Ridge checkpoint was dismantled. Not upgraded. Removed. The guards who had scattered her belongings were reassigned without explanation. The base carried on as if nothing had happened. But in the supply annex, her desk sat empty. No farewell notice. No box packed. Just an open drawer with a faded notebook, one spoon, and a metal ring with a burned edge. Her absence spoke louder than her presence ever had. The world adjusted. At first, the archive was everywhere. Headlines, debates, denials. Then, as always, it was buried under noise. New crises. New wars. New distractions. But something lingered. Not in policy. Not in speeches. In silence. In the way younger officers paused at locked doors. In the way colonels stopped laughing when a woman entered the room. In the way drone operators sometimes muttered when a feed went dark mid-flight. Red Falcon. Sophia Vale vanished again. Not as a clerk. Not as Valkyrie. Just as consequence. She never asked for recognition. She never wanted applause. All she wanted was to not be erased. And now, somewhere in the archives of the world, Her name lived. That was enough. The night ended not with an explosion, not with a victory march, but with silence. A silence that knew the truth. A silence that carried her story. Some stories don't end with applause. Some end with the quiet knowledge that they were finally seen. If you were Sophia, if your whole life had been erased, and then suddenly revealed for the world to judge, would you have chosen silence or truth?